can Zcash go to $50,000 per coin? That's the very question we're gonna try to answer today. So make sure to stick around to the end of this video where we will outline a path for what it takes for Zcash to hit $50,000 by the end of this decade. Alright, so without further ado, let's directly jump into this presentation. Why Zcash? Why should you allocate a small percentage of your portfolio to Zcash? So here I would like to quote Naval, one of the deepest thinkers, philosophers, and investors of our time. So he says Bitcoin is insurance against fiat and Zcash is insurance against Bitcoin. We all, or most of us, are in crypto to protect ourselves against the collapse of the fiat currency system, or just generally TradFi. But then Naval goes on and says that Zcash is insurance against Bitcoin, as Bitcoin has some inherent flaws, like it doesn't support privacy. There is the Satoshi wallet, which holds roughly 5% of the entire supply, and then there are the Michael Saylors of this world, which are taking on leverage and buying up more and more of the total supply of Bitcoin, which could be good, of course, as it pumps our backs. But if this goes wrong, it could lead to a crazy collapse and just downward spiral for Bitcoin. So therefore, Zcash serves as this hedge against Bitcoin. Moreover, Naval says that code is free speech and encryption is the right to bear arms. So just the way that we all want to be able to express our thoughts and ideas either via free speech or just writing code, everybody of us should have the right of encryption and privacy, just the way that we bear arms to protect ourselves, our families, and our homes. We should also reserve the right to privacy to hide our financial transaction from the outside world, because it's just weird that on blockchain these days everything we do, every DeFi interaction, can be tracked back to the very beginnings, like to the moment we created our wallets, and everybody can see how wealthy or how poor we are. And then probably the most mind-boggling post or truth that Naval spoke is that Satoshi himself cannot use the Bitcoin blockchain. And initially, like, I took a step back and thought, like, what does he try to say with this post? But then it immediately clicked. If you think about it, Satoshi really cannot use Bitcoin, his very own creation. I'm not sure if you all are aware of it, but there is the Satoshi wallet that holds 1 million, like 1.1 million Bitcoin. So that's roughly 5% of the entire supply. And if Satoshi ever wanted to send just, I don't know, $10 worth of Bitcoin to another wallet or to somebody else, or the moment that this wallet gets active again, I mean, the entire Bitcoin world would crash and massive panic would break loose, since all of a sudden this wallet becomes active again and nobody knows, like, shit, what's gonna happen now? Has somebody cracked Satoshi's wallet, or is Satoshi still alive? So everybody would front run this and try to dump their Bitcoin, since something happened in the background, and therefore Satoshi really needs privacy, otherwise he cannot interact with Bitcoin, which is just mind-blowing if you think about it. And one final quote from Naval: the future of freedom depends on zero-knowledge proof. And this is not a very recent post. He posted it more than 1.5 years ago, while all the other posts are more recent. So he already understood back then that zero-knowledge proofs, the technology that underpins the Zcash blockchain, is like paramount for the future of our freedom. And the Zcash team was the first team that implemented zero-knowledge proof on a working blockchain back in the days when they launched Zcash in 2016. So this shows that the Zcash devs are really cracked and they know their craft. So moving on, why Zcash? Mert, who is arguably the loudest guy out there on CT promoting Zcash, somebody asked him, why are you shilling Zcash for a while? So here I would like to summarize his tweet and give you the main takeaways. So first, he says that there are 3 important missions in crypto. The first one is open markets or internet capital markets, which arguably is occupied by Solana or other high throughput layer 1 chains like Hyperliquid, Sui, whatever. Then second, we have the store of value, which Bitcoin is like going after, and we can also make the case that Zcash is going after the store of value narrative too. And third, we have privacy, where Zcash, Monero, and all the other privacy protocols come into play. The second point that he highlights here is that large technological improvements are coming very soon within the next year to Zcash, which will increase performance by up to 100x. The third point that he makes is that Zcash is relatively underpriced if you compare it to other privacy coins like Monero, while Zcash comes with better privacy tech and has a more plausible scaling roadmap. But also if you compare Zcash and its market cap to other coins like Cardano, Stellar, or Shiba Inu, all these coins have a way higher market cap than Zcash. Then another point that he makes here, that now there is a renaissance of talent flowing into the Zcash ecosystem, especially since the launch of the 𝗬𝗫ci wallet in combination with Near Intents, which unlocked this new paradigm and made Zcash accessible to the mainstream audience and to everyday users like you and me, since we can now store Zcash on our phones. Fifth, Zcash is a very old coin, and it has a community that has been through the baddest of bear markets out there, but they're still stuck through the storm and are genuinely passionate about the mission of Zcash. Just a quick historic reminder, Zcash was launched in 2016 as a proof of work coin, so most of the folks that bought Zcash back then are now highly underwater, but still they kept on believing in this mission to make internet money private. So here you have a very OG community that never gave up on their beliefs, and that forms this bedrock fundament for a strong community. And the final point Mert makes is that a world where crypto succeeds but privacy does not, it's a dystopian nightmare, so private money has to work. So 𝗬𝗪 joined the Zcash party as well, and he made the argument of a whale rotation. He said that there are lots of Bitcoiners and Ethereans out there that sit on 1000x's, 10,000x's even, and it would just make logical sense for some of them to rotate parts of their gains into Zcash as government overreach becomes more and more likely going forward. And then, just a few days later, BadBot posted that Zcash is the GameStop revenge trade on steroids. So what does he mean by that? He basically says that Zcash is a revenge against everything, against corrupt governments and the entire surveillance states. It's a revenge trade against the banksters. It's a revenge trade against the VC slop and all the hedge fund managers out there that have arguably polluted the space. Because again, Zcash is a proof of work chain. So there have been no VCs involved, and the only way to obtain tokens is by either purchasing them on the open market or to spin up your own miner, just the way that Bitcoin is mined, and then being rewarded with fresh ZEC. And it's a revenge trade against Bitcoin and crypto in general that has largely abandoned its cypherpunk ideas. Run it to zillions with haste. And the best part of it is that governments, banksters, institutions, VCs, hedge funds, etc., they will all be sidelined because of privacy. So these major institutions, they are somehow hesitant and probably not even allowed to buy Zcash on behalf of their clients. So only individuals and retail folks like you and me can enter into Zcash. But if over time, retail front runs the institutions and Zcash gains mass adoption, then of course the institutions or the sideliners that are mentioned here above, they will be forced to buy our bags from us at zillions plus. And then, 𝗪𝗪𝗿 here quote tweeted this revenge trade post where he said, "I personally love the fact that BlackRock will never ever launch an ETF for Zcash," and that's also something to highlight, because it's cool TradFis are coming in, they're buying our bags as I said before, but this also imposes an inherent risk to the entire space. And Zcash will definitely be free of this headache and those risks. Cool. So now solving the trilemma of a hard asset. And that's exactly what Zcash does. Here we have the three circles of a hard asset. Like it should be, or it should work as a store of value. It should give you privacy properties. And ideally it should be portable so that you can take it with you wherever you go. So the oldest form of this hard asset is gold, and it gives you the properties of a store of value and privacy as long as you keep it at your home. Like nobody really knows how much gold you have. But it has the downside of portability. If you go on vacation or if you want to move to another country, then it's pretty cumbersome to take your gold with you. So a little later, Bitcoin was invented, which also works as a store of value, and now it's portable. All you need is just to memorize the private phrase and you can travel the world and take your Bitcoin always with you. But the downside of Bitcoin is it's not private and everybody can peek into your wallet and scan your holdings. And then third, we have fiat currency, which, as we all know, with like the inflation and the money printing that's going on, doesn't serve as a store of value, but it gives us privacy as long as we use it as cash or paper money, and it's portable and we can take our cash with us, of course, until a limited amount. You cannot bring millions with you unless you have a private jet, then probably it's possible. But the point I'm trying to make here, Zcash is at this sweet spot in the middle, and it gives you all the three properties. It works as a store of value, same properties as Bitcoin, proof of work, 21 million token supply. It is portable, just as Bitcoin and the fiat currencies, but it also has this one unique property which Bitcoin doesn't, which is privacy. So the TLDR is that Zcash is private Bitcoin. And talking about privacy, let's look at this beautiful chart here, which displays the adoption of shielded ZEC. So ZEC can be transparent or shielded. You as the user, you can choose whether to keep it on your transparent address or to put it into the shielded pool, which is like, you can think of it like a black hole, and everything you send in there cannot be tracked back and nobody can look into it. And this chart is exactly the amount of Zcash that is protected in this shielded pool. So over here we see that, like, let's say in the middle of 2024 it began, and since then it just went parabolic. If we look here, we see that 3.8 million Zcash are currently held in the orchard pool. So that's roughly 20% of the entire supply. But in total, there is even more Zcash that is shielded, namely 4.6 million, which is 27% of the entire circulating supply. And I mean, this chart looks a bit confusing, but let me explain. There are three different shielding pools, like three different generations. So it all started off with the Sprout pool in 2016, which was the first generation of shielded pools. And then 2 years later, in 2018, the sampling pool went live, and there we saw an increased adoption of this shielding technology. But the real breakthrough was when the orchard pool went live, and as we said before, somewhere in 2024, like, it just became super easy, especially in combination with Near Intense and the 𝗬𝗪 wallet for everyday users, to shield their Zcash. And as you see here, over time, folks withdrew their money from the sampling pool and just added it to the orchard pool. And right now, more than 25% of all Zcash are shielded there. And what is really key to understand, that these shielded pools, they act as a sort of supply sink, because people that deposit their ZEC into the shielded pool, those are not traders, those are hardcore privacy freaks that stand for the cypherpunk ethos, and they are long-term holders, and they're not like the typical traders. As we've seen over the last weekend when the markets went to shit, here nobody actually withdrew ZEC from the shielded pool, because only people rotating out of Zcash are traders, while everybody else just keeps their Zcash shielded and just chills because they have this long-term horizon, and they know the longer I keep my Zcash into this shielded pool, the more privacy I gain from it. And so while everybody else is getting crazy and panic sells, Zcashers, they just chill, holding their Zcash in the private pool, and only folks that are interested in flipping or day traders, they are like selling and buying Zcash, but all the shielded assets, they really remained untouched, and yeah, the balance just increased. So those are all long-term holders that are not selling. Alright, now let's look at the ZEC price target. How high can Zcash go? Is it really possible for Zcash to hit $50,000 per coin? So again, 𝗪𝗪𝗿𝗀, he shared this post. Chatter, I hear from long-term holders, their first price target is 1% of Bitcoin, reevaluate then. So, as we know, Zcash and Bitcoin have the exact same supply, 21 million Bitcoins, 21 million Zcash, and there will never be more coins. So if you think that a private version of Bitcoin should be worth 1% of Bitcoin's market cap, that would value one Zcash at $1,000, and currently we are sitting at $250. But then Frank Brown, another Zcash OG, joined the conversation, and he said, less than 1% means there is something really off with the world. To him, it seems that the minimum price a private version of Bitcoin should have is 5%. So if we suppose Bitcoin doesn't go higher from here and it stays somewhere around 100K, then Zcash, if it were to obtain 5% of Bitcoin's market cap, then this would put one Zcash at a price target of 5K. Now let's add some numbers to the theory. So Zcash at 1% of Bitcoin's market cap would make one ZEC worth 1K. At 5% of Bitcoin's market cap, one Zcash token would be worth 5K. And over the long run, as many experts out there say that Bitcoin could reach 1 million within the next 5 to 10 years, and if we extrapolate that further, and Zcash maintains this 5% market share of Bitcoin, so this would make one Zcash worth $5,000. That might be a bull case, and of course there's no guarantee that Bitcoin will ever go to 1 million, but one could make the case that Zcash, or the private form of Bitcoin, should be worth even more than 5% of Bitcoin's market cap. What about 10%, 15%, maybe 20, 25%? Who knows? So yeah, this might sound outlandish for now, but Zcash could really hit 50K and probably go even beyond that. And in the best case scenario, probably even surpass Bitcoin, since it's Bitcoin but private. So to me, as a holder, it brings even more value than holding Bitcoin. And here, it's another valuation method that I really much like. This doesn't tie the value of Zcash to Bitcoin, but it compares it to the entire offshore wealth that is currently hidden in so-called tax paradises or tax havens. So Torrance makes the case, if 5% of the entire offshore wealth were to be stored in Zcash, that would put one Zcash at $30,000, and if 10% of the entire offshore wealth were to be preserved or stored in the form of Zcash, that would give it a price target of beyond 60K. I mean, if you combine both theories, then one Zcash could even go to 100K. Alright, now let's take a brief look into the Zcash chart. Over here we see the yearly chart of Zcash, and we see that just at the very end of September it began to go parabolic while it traded around $50 for a very long time. And some people might know, shit, I just lost the train and this went parabolic without me. But yeah, if we zoom in, like there's been like the first pump, retrace, another pump, retrace, another pump, retrace, and now like we're accelerating again. But as I told you before, it might seem expensive right now, but we're at a market cap of 4 billion, fully diluted. And I mean, again, if you compare it to Bitcoin or to other weird coins like Shiba Inu or ADA, then Zcash still seems to be super undervalued. And if we zoom in here a little bit, you see that like this coin was just dead and bouncing around $50 to $60, but it had two spikes during its entire history. So the first one was during the 2021 bull market where it spiked up to $300, almost twice. And of course, back in 2017, that was the time I entered crypto. I remember like Zcash from then, and I guess that I had one Zcash somewhere, but I lost it along the way. I think it's stuck forever in whatever wallet, as I lost access to my keys. But yeah, back in 2018, it spiked to $808. So there are always these phases where the privacy narrative pops back up again, but back then I remember it was so hard to interact with it, while these days it's super easy and straightforward, especially with the 𝗬𝗂 app. But again, if we zoom out, I mean, yes, it's been up a lot lately, so don't ape in all at once right now. And of course, no financial advice, do your own research. I just try to share with you my own opinions here and my own research. Yeah, briefly to the tokenomics, as we've seen, market cap 4 billion, and here max supply exactly 21 million, the same way as Bitcoin is. And yeah, currently here we see the difference between the total and the max supply, or circulating and max supply. So 78% of all Zcash has already been minted, and we are currently sitting at a inflation rate of 4.2%, and that's another reason why Zcash had a very hard time until now, because inflation was 8% just until 1 year ago. You know, it follows the same halvening schedule than Bitcoin does. So the halvening cycle, as you can see, is 4 years, and then inflation gets cut by half. So there was just this continuous sell pressure as miners sold their rewards. But this also is responsible for this beautiful distribution that Zcash has these days, since again there were no VCs and the only way to obtain it was to buy or to mint it. And that's the beauty of, or probably also the major reason why proof of work is so beautiful, because it distributes the token over a long time horizon to millions of people around the world. And right now we have block times of 75 seconds, and every 75 seconds 1.56 Zcash is paid out to the miners, and the next halvening is coming up on November 2028. And then in a little more than 2 years, inflation will be cut by half and drop to 2.1%, and block rewards will reduce to 0.78 every 75 seconds. And yeah, talking about block rewards, unlike Bitcoin, where 100% of the block rewards go to the miners, in Zcash's case, 80% of the block rewards go to miners, while 20% are allocated to a ecosystem development fund, which is pretty smart, to align developers and external community members to contribute to the growth of the Zcash protocol. And those 20% are divided into 8%, which go into the Zcash community grants, which is nothing else than a liquid grants program that distributes those funds to independent teams and community members and community initiatives. And then the other 12% is allocated to a lockbox, which is a pool that accumulates Zcash, but it's not paid out as of now. It just keeps accumulating it, and for now you can also make the argument that it takes this supply away from the market, and it's up to the Zcash community to decide on a suitable decentralized mechanism for permitting withdrawals from this locked box. So this has been a lot, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video thus far and you were able to learn a little more about Zcash. But if you want to dive deeper, especially into the history of Zcash, how the privacy works underneath, if you want to know the difference between Monero and Zcash, and just their general roadmap, how they will scale the protocol going forward, then I highly recommend checking out Sasha's Zcash thesis, where he tries to make the case for a small allocation to Zcash. And generally, if you want to stay up to date with the latest developments in the Zcash ecosystem, please make sure to give Sasha a follow on Twitter. And if you're already sold on Zcash and want to take action immediately and start off your journey by shielding 20, 30, 50, 100 bucks, whatever, in the Zcash shielded pool, then please make sure to check out the video tutorial that I recorded last week, where I walk you step by step through the onboarding process, how you buy Zcash on-chain, how to download the 𝗬𝗂 wallet, and how you can privately store Zcash directly on your phone. That's it for today's video. If you have any questions or need some help with onboarding or would like to know my personal allocation to Zcash and my price targets, feel free to join us at 𝗬𝗶+, where we discuss privacy, DeFi, NFTs, and much more. Alright, that's it for today, and hope to see you the next time. 𝗬𝗵𝘁 out.